right, so welcome to Yogis on the Road. It's happening. Hey Alexis, welcome. How you doing?
Hi, I'm pretty good. It's interesting to
Okay.
be doing this with you.
I know, it's pretty cool. So yeah, we decided to do this because it came out of, first of all, who are we? You know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could talk about myself for a minute. I'm a pretty seriously dedicated yoga practitioner. Um, in Sanskrit, the word is shishya. I would say that a shishya is the good student. Like you want to be the best student because you will the one that like sits near the front of the class to get all the information. And I feel like that's what I want to be, and that's somehow like what I've turned into with my life. And so I'm just
Cool.
trying to take the wisdom that I've gotten from being the shishya or the best student and pay it forward. Yeah.
Nice. I used to get teased a lot for being a good shishya when I was in, elementary school and
Yeah.
middle school.
Yeah.
You get teased a lot for that.
I know, right? I mean, you do get teased a lot, but and yogis, further you go down the path, the more weird you become. You're not drinking with all of the
Yeah.
socialites. You're not going to all these lavish places. You're not really buying expensive clothes anymore, and
But I feel
it,
amazing doing that. Like I
yeah,
feel it's so much more empowering, so much more like liberating. Like there's a
yeah,
lot of freedom in that.
yeah,
And yeah, if I think of like how I changed from a couple of years ago to now, or like to from when I came to the US
uh-huh.
and all the drugs and all the bad company and all the crazy stuff, up to who I am now.
Well, what were you like before you started practicing yoga?
So I started practicing Ashtanga yoga.
What's Ashtanga?
Ashtanga is it's the yoga that was, a sort of like put together by Krishnamacharya and Patapi Joyce.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, we shared that, it's an amazing
Yeah.
practice. And we'll talk more about that in the episodes to come and the 8 limbs of yoga and all
Yeah.
that.
So you
And
started practicing Ashtanga yoga,
I
which is a
started
certain type.
practicing. Yeah. So what were you saying?
It's a certain type of yoga. That was where you first started with yoga.
Yes, with my maestro, my teacher in Italy, that's Lino Miele. And
You were his shishya.
yeah.
Okay.
And I did that because both my mom and my aunt practiced with him. So it just happened randomly. And it started because I was 29 years old
Uh-huh.
and I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk. I couldn't use my legs. I had to like use a reinforcement for my rib cage, and I was just falling apart. So for me, it started from like I need to take care of my body. Yeah,
Okay.
and I have a past with drug abuse and all sorts of abuses. Relationship abuse, emotional abuse,
Yeah.
and work abuse.
Yeah.
'Cause
How?
work
How'd you abuse work?
because you work a lot, so you don't basically never stop and like be in the moment
I see.
and never be with yourself. It's a way of escape of being busy.
Yeah.
When you talk
Escaping
to
your crappy body. Because your legs were going numb. You're only 29.
yeah, and when you talk to people and you're like, oh, how you doing? It's like, oh, busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, how are you doing though?
Yeah, there's a big difference in
Huge.
actually asking.
And I think yoga really helped with like really be in tune
Yeah.
with yourself.
So you started doing Ashtanga yoga because your body was really messed up?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really because you were doing drugs or because you were working really hard. It seems like it was just because your legs and you had to wear this brace.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened?
Well, it happened that I talked to Lino
Uh-huh.
and I asked him, I cannot feel my leg.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, and I said, I tell my leg to like relax, And he told me, in like, Roman dialect, and that's the way he speaks, it's not very formal.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I hope we'll have Lino on the show at some point,
Yeah, he sounds nice.
And he told me, you speak to your leg? And I said, yeah, you're crazy. Your leg doesn't talk Italian. Like, what's the matter with you, And I said, well, how, and he said, well, you don't have to speak to it. Like, the reason that your leg is not working, it's way deeper. So you need to access like a deeper sense of your own self. And just do this practice and everything will fall into place. And I said, how?
Uh-huh.
And he said, you don't need to know how. It's a form of control. You don't control, just do it. And like Patabi Joyce used to say all the time, 99% practice, 1% theory. So I just started.
But why did you listen to him? Like, why did you believe him?
How can you not believe him, Because he's a person, that's the thing that like, about like all these people that we'll talk about, we have some books here by BKS Iyengar, by Krishnamurti. Lino's book is here. Eddie's book is there. Eddie Stern, who rocks. Our teacher.
Hi, Eddie.
Guy. Hi, Eddie. Blink, blink, blink. Guy and Eddie's book about Guruji, Patabi Joyce. And all these people, no matter what you feel or what your thing is, all these people have dedicated their life to something that's bigger than them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that something that we want to do with this project is transmit that deeper experience into others because, like you said, there was something that happened to you at the beginning of that path that awakened you and helped you to understand that what was going on was in more than just your body. And so yoga in the West and in many places, people see it as fitness and people see it as a physical thing and they come to it from a physical place. But like Lino said to you, there's something in your control and there's something that you need to look at that's running much deeper. And it's hard to put into words, but something hit you so that you believed him and listened to him. And we want to kind of explain that to others by bringing people in that have also had this direct experience of wisdom and understanding of actual yoga.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and eventually we'll have to travel and go meet these people, work with them, be their students, do workshops with them. Because the world, especially now, it's almost the end of 2019.
The end of the world.
As we know it. Mm-hmm. And the world is filled with these extremely, I wouldn't say like enlightened beings, but like people that have given a meaning to their lives and that they go beyond themselves.
Yeah.
And try to help others do the same. And that's what like a guru does, the dispeller of darkness.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our goal. Hopefully, we'll make it.
Yeah, ideally we would be bringing in people that we really respected as teachers and students alike that role model the dispelling of darkness and ignorance, which is, why we became Sisyas. The Sisya is the student that follows the guru so that we have experienced firsthand the dispelling of darkness and ignorance and how we abuse ourselves in our lives, and that is the practice of yoga. And so this project is meant to be a practice of yoga as well, and it's much further than the physical component.
How long have you been practicing? I mean, I know how long, I'm just asking, but like you've been practicing for a while, you've been in India for a while, you met all these bigger than life gurus.
And somehow I'm still an idiot. Wow. Yeah, I have a ways to go.
Yeah.
I first went to a yoga class when I was like 14. There was one at my dad's gym or something, and so I went, and it was okay. And then when I was in high school, I wanted to win the heart of a boy, so I got a month-long pass to a Bikram studio. And I did like a 30-day challenge, and I'd say that was when I started to cultivate like a regular yoga asana practice. Asana is the posture, and so then it went on and off for a while, and I became very dedicated, maybe, I don't know, 6 years ago. But that's just my asana practice. Yoga has 8 limbs, and my spiritual relationship with yoga, or the other limbs of yoga, that also happened when I was very young.
Interesting. I mean, isn't it interesting that like everybody starts for the like completely like most different reasons, and then eventually definitely. You get, no matter how you get in the path, but then you get in the path.
Yeah, I always go closer to the center. Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk about, we've been saying, these 8 limbs of yoga. First of all, Ashtanga means 8 limbs, from Sanskrit.
Ashta meaning 8, Anga meaning limb.
Yeah, and you're really good at Sanskrit.
I'm not really good at Sanskrit.
You teach me some of Patanjali's sutras.
Yeah, we would like to explore those here. I mean, Sanskrit is almost a perfect language. It transcends time. It's really wild. And
what do you mean when you say it transcends time?
Well, because when you look at a word in Sanskrit, there are letters, and the letters they go in a certain area, but some letters will be above one letter or below a letter, or some letters will be pronounced after a letter even though they come before. So it's almost like time doesn't really have a say. Like you have to look at the whole word in Sanskrit, and then something before the letter might inform what happens after it.
Interesting.
So it's really non-linear.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Even thinking that like not having this concept of like, linear time.
Yeah.
Or just everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you kind of it really kind of disables the Western mind when you think about it, because you're like, oh, I can't actually think about the future right now. I have to look at this as a complete entity where the past, the present, and the future are all happening at the same time.
Interesting. I mean, I think Krishnamurti, in the book that we have there, Freedom from the Known, he mentioned, for instance, the publicity. He mentioned the concept of happiness in terms of time. Because basically, like, according to him, like, which I tend to agree with, usually, like, happiness is something that happens in the present.
Yes.
Like, we're doing this, I'm happy right now, right? But then when you try to replicate maybe an experience that you've had and that made you happy, the circumstance will never be the same, because that moment is gone. So that trying to replicate that feeling of happiness, it's what causes unhappiness.
Yes.
Because you try
attachment.
Yes, it's attachment, and it's trying to superimpose. If you go to a bar with your friends and you have a good time for a number of reasons,
and then you're trying to chase that experience again every time you go to a bar. Yeah.
And it'll never be the same. It'll always be different. And that's why it's the same thing with drugs. Like, we were talking earlier to a person that we will have on one of our next episodes. The difference, of, drugs versus this new quote unquote drug, which I found, which is yoga. And it's like, this is, doesn't take a toll on my body. It makes me healthier. And it's not as immediate of having like, LSD or, doing hallucinogenics and you feel, oh, you saw God.
Yeah.
This takes a while, a lot of practice and dedication.
Yeah.
But it's the most true.
It seems like it's hooked you, And so you get that kind of happiness and that high, but the happiness is renewed each time, which is different than drugs.
Yeah.
Because in the drugs, you get high and you have a one good high and then you're chasing that high.
Exactly.
But in the practice of yoga, you might have a happy experience and then the next day you have another happy but different experience because you are in the present.
Yeah, and I mean, some days are really tiring.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, I felt amazing. Oh, we're just coming from practice, by the way.
As we always are.
Yeah, we always coming
this
from
is
practice
part 2.
Exactly.
Actually,
it's part of our sadhana.
Yes.
Which is
sadhana is the spiritual path. So it's the journey. You know, we're on the road. I guess we're all on the road to moksha, which is liberation, and so people that are on their sadhana are people that are pursuing enlightenment as an end goal. Yeah.
Exactly. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
Join
when we
club.
say when we say enlightenment, you know, like samadhi, like unity with God.
It's vague. Enlightenment is vague.
Yeah. I mean, samadhi is the 8th limb of yoga, right? So maybe let's say what the limbs are.
Okay.
And briefly go through them before we wrap it up. And then
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, an introduction to yoga, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this, but for those of you who are not, there are 8 limbs in the system of yoga as a philosophy. Yoga has the yamas, then the niyamas, which are ways that you should relate with others and also ways that you should relate with yourself. These are ethical and moral codes of conduct. Then there is asana, which is posture, and that is how to prepare the body for going inwards into meditation. Then there is pranayama. Pranayama is breath regulation or pranic regulation, which is the energy. So you can regulate your conscious and unconscious processes through pranayama, which is breath control as it's loosely translated.
Let me ask you something, because you said earlier, so asana is the 3rd limb, but you say that what prepares you to go inside.
Yeah.
So let's unfold maybe a little bit of that on that before we keep on going forward.
These first 4 limbs, yamas, niyamas, asana, and pranayama, these all have to do with the outside world. So these are kind of the outer limbs in the circle before you go inward to reaching supreme consciousness. And so these limbs all need to be established. You need to be regulated in all of these things before you can actually start to look inwards. And this takes years. And these are like the first preceding limbs, because essentially what you're doing in yoga is you're taking your awareness and you're moving it inwards and you're renouncing the outside world so that you can become one with supreme consciousness. And that is samadhi at the end.
Because then brings us to the other 4th, the other half.
So once you've become pretty proficient in yamas and niyamas, so being good and ethical to others and yourself, asana and pranayama, which is having a firm grasp of your body and your breath. Then there's pratyahara, which is sensory withdrawal. And that's when you start to...
I'm sorry?
Sensory withdrawal.
Okay.
So it's when you take your senses and you start to turn inward. This is where you start to go into meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are the final 3 limbs, which are dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So dharana and dhyana are the processes of meditation where the first one is where you focus on an object and you are fortifying your concentration on a single object. So that's where we use drishti, which is a point of focus. You can look at a candle, for example, and then you focus on the candle for a long time.
Or sometimes when we do a pose, like you look at your fingertips.
You just look at the finger forever. And then once you do that for a really long time, years, lifetimes maybe, then you start to fade out and your identity dissolves, and then you become the process of witnessing yourself and the candle, and you become yourself and the candle and everything throughout that.
So you witness yourself. So you observe
yourself
The
observing
observer.
the candle.
Interesting.
And you can also become the candle. And this is a very difficult process to describe. But then once you do that, then
because that's the thing. I'm sorry if I interrupt you, but like when you say it's difficult to describe, and I mean I've read this in many books, including Eddie's book, Guruji's, even Iyengar's book. It is not something that you can learn from a book.
No.
You can only learn through experience.
It says in the sutras that yoga can only be known through direct experience, knowledge.
If we remember what sutra that is, maybe we can look it up and recite it.
Yeah.
So that'll be like our sutra for the day.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. We can, and then through this direct experience, one will eventually attain samadhi, the final limb.
Which is basically unity with God. Because eventually yoga, what it means is unity. Union.
Yes, to yoke. Yuj.
So that's union with yourself, God, your mind, body, soul, with everything that's around you.
Total union, yes.
That's interesting. And I mean, that's kind of like the purpose of like our lives in a way.
Yes, that's the purpose of our sadhana. That's our intention with this project, to ultimately cultivate a union between the separate self and the higher self within all beings.
Wow. I mean, yeah, we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought that maybe we could leave with another yoga sutra, which is the Yogas, Chitta Vritti,
Nirodha,
which basically sums up what yoga is.
Yes. So, I mean, to end, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, yoga is the stilling of the fluctuation of the mind stuff.
Okay, we'll leave it at that.
And at that, we will still our fluctuating mind stuff.
And then we'll keep on going. And we have a guest coming on our next episodes, and she's a pretty amazing yogi.
Yes, we're really lucky to have her, Laura Sutton.
And I cannot wait to, have a little talk with her.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. See you next time. Awesome.
Yes.
Okay, ciao.